Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell. Thank you for joining. I'm going to go over the market updates and my perspective of how trading most likely will evolve for next week. I'm recording this on 6/27/2026. Markets will open up on 6/29. Thank you for joining. Please help support the work that I do by donating. You can donate on my website. At the very bottom of this homepage, you can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee. You can also be a paid member to my Patreon channel and my Substack channel. All these videos I do are for free, so please help support the work. Go to my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Now, for the ones that don't know, under broadcast, you can listen to audio archives of my shows, watch the live streams, and also read some generated content that I have. In addition, I have ebooks that you can purchase about finance, science, artificial intelligence, and also supplements. So let's go over the supplements really quick before we break down the information about the markets. I have structural nano silver toothpaste. This toothpaste will whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, reduce inflammation. It helped to neutralize. It has the structural nano silver. It has no fluoride. It's a very high quality toothpaste. Please use it every day. I have Max 35 and Max 14. Take a teaspoon a day every day, and this will help to boost up your innate immune system. Structural nano silver, you can get it in a gel form or in the quick dispenser called Renew. It's dual purpose. It's going to help to improve your skin. You can put it on an abrasion to help heal it quicker, or a cut, minor burn. And during the cold season or the allergy season, lightly coat your nostrils. They'll stay active for 5.5 hours. I also have structural nano silver lozenges in Manuka honey and orange splash. The orange splash is fortified with vitamin C. These lozenges, you use them during the cold season, the allergy season, even if you're cleaning around the house. Very effective, and it helps to neutralize. I have two types of probiotics. This one on the screen here is the VeggieCap version, and with a good probiotic, you're improving your gut biome. You're also improving your skin, brain function, metabolism, even bringing down inflammation at the gut level and improving your immune system. Cleanse is very similar to Max 35 or Max 14. It's 30 parts per million. Use it the same way to boost up the innate immune system. C60 is a very potent antioxidant. You can get it in a 2-ounce, a 4-ounce, or an 8-ounce configuration. It is cheaper per ounce to get the higher ounce configuration. You can get it in extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, or MCT coconut oil. And what C60 does is it'll soak up free radicals. And by doing that, it's going to improve your energy levels, help with your cardiovascular system, your brain function. It'll help with the neurons and help with positive neuroplasticity. It'll improve the health of the mitochondria. You'll have more ATP, more energy. Your immune system and your endocrine system will improve. Very potent. It's about 1,000 times stronger than vitamin C. Take a teaspoon a day every day. It will also help with the basal layer of your skin. You'll notice that your skin is improving over time. Vitamin D3 helps to improve your cardiovascular health, helps to boost up your immune system, also helps with bone density. Vitamin C and magnesium helps with the skin, brain function, and immune system. Omega-3 helps with the cardiovascular system by bringing down inflammation, controlling your lipid profile, and reducing over clotting with the red blood cells. Ashwagandha root helps control your cortisol levels and your blood glucose levels, bring down inflammation, help with your cardiovascular system, and your immune system. Good Night Formula has tryptophan, melatonin, and GABA and passion flower to get you into those 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep so you are consolidating memory, detoxifying your central nervous system, and you'll be well rested. By taking Good Night Formula every day, you will slow down the aging process and improve brain function. I have a powdered version of the probiotic. On 2 previous screens, I showed the VeggieCap version. Resveratrol, very important. It's a strong antioxidant and helps with youthful gene expression. It helps the health of the mitochondria, so you have more ATP. And by soaking up free radicals, you're reducing stress on the cells. Resveratrol also stacks really well with C60 to help with the basal layer of your skin. Vitamin B complex, super important to take if you're 40 years of age or older. It'll help to boost up energy levels, rev up cellular metabolism, and protect neurons. Turmeric brings down inflammation and soaks up free radicals, helps with the immune system and your endocrine system. Magnesium and zinc boosts up that immune system and helps with brain function. It's very important to take magnesium as a supplement to improve brain function. Lignans is an antioxidant. It's going to help with your immune system and your endocrine system. It'll soak up free radicals. It stacks really well with the turmeric and the ashwagandha root. And by doing that, you are supercharging. There's synergistic benefits of stacking it, where you're improving your cardiovascular fitness, helping with brain function, helping with your immune system, and slowing down the aging process. I highly recommend taking the lignans, the turmeric, and the ashwagandha together. Collagen. This will help with your skin, nails, and hair, improve the health of those. Also helps with joints, musculature, and bone density. Digestive enzyme complex reduces the load on your pancreas so you can digest your carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. You'll be able to absorb your nutrients easier and less stress on your digestive system. Clarity factor will help to get rid of that brain fog. Clarity factor allows you to concentrate on tasks. And over time, you will notice that you are thinking faster and you're improving that positive neuroplasticity. So to improve your brain function and concentration, take clarity factor every day. Olive leaf extract helps to bring down inflammation and also helps to control your lipid profile. And by doing that, you're helping your cardiovascular system and your immune system. It's dual purpose. The zeolite helps to detoxify your body. This will bind to heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals and allow you to urinate them out within 6 to 8 hours. Take 3 small drops underneath your tongue, drink filtered water. It's very easy to take and very effective. Myotrol will help to build muscle and maintain muscle, especially if you're 40 years of age or older. Do some resistance training and take the Myotrol. It has polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans to help with the gene expression to build muscle. When you get older, your gene expression starts to decline. Myotrol helps to get back to youthful gene expression. Boomer Boost. This is a great supplement you should be taking every day. It has the vitamins, the minerals, and other supplements within this compound to help slow down the aging process, improve musculature, help with your cardiovascular health, help with your immune system and endocrine system, bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals, help with brain function, and rev up your cellular metabolism and energy levels. It is a great supplement to take. It's a month's supply. You should be taking it every day, and this will help to slow down the aging process. You can use Boomer Boost as your multivitamin. Gladiator barley helps to bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals, detoxify your body, and build muscle. You can stack it with the Boomer Boost for added benefit. or synergistic. You can also stack the heirloom barley with the Boom Boost. Now, heirloom barley detoxifies your body, brings down inflammation, and soaks up free radicals with superoxide dismutase. So if you want to build muscle, take the Gladiator barley and the Myotrol. That's a good stack too. Now, collagen is a supplement that you should take to repair your joints if you have arthritis or you have some sort of sports injury. Now, how it works is that you take the dropper and use the contents, put it underneath your tongue, drink filtered water. But what it does is it helps to rebuild your cartilage by helping the collagen type 2 and also helps to remodel the cushioning of the joint by ACAN. It also helps to block some pain by interacting with NAV 1.7. It stops erosion of the joint by inhibiting MMP3 and MMP13. And it also helps to recruit and activate the glucosamine. Helps to bring that glucosamine in to help repair the cartilage, and chondroitin. It helps to utilize the chondroitin. So it's a great supplement to help to remodel your joint if you have arthritis or a sports injury. I highly recommend taking the collagen and stacking it with the collagen. To reduce pain temporarily, take the Super Strong Relief. It's a topical. This will help with reducing pain from bruises, sore muscles, joint pain, even tension headaches. I have anti-aging boxes. I'm not going to go through them all. I have anti-aging boxes and longevity boxes that I've curated at different price points. It's a great way to start your anti-aging protocol. Or you can buy the supplements separately. It's up to you. But it is cheaper to buy it through the anti-aging boxes. And I have classes where you can join. You can log in as many times as you want, whenever you want, to learn about pulmonology and immunology. You get lots of videos, lots of PDFs. Once you sign up the module, you'll get a password to log in under classes. You type in that password and you'll be able to watch the videos and download the PDFs of the different subjects that are listed on the screen here. It's a great way to learn about how the human body works. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great products that I offer. And if you'd like to help support the work that I do, because all these videos are for free, please donate on my website through Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee, or be a paid member to my Patreon channel. With that said, what we're going to do is go over the market charts that I have created for you. Okay. This chart is representing SPY, which is an ETF for the S&P 500. And as you can see here, recently, for a few weeks, we've been below the all-time high of 760 for SPY, the ETF. That would equate to about 7,600. Now, with the sell off and then it retesting and then selling back down, I've been saying that there's going to be some sort of consolidation that's taking place here. This is tied into, will there be some sort of a true peace in the Middle East? Also, this is tied into the chip AI hype that's going on. There's some sell-off that's going on in Asia, especially in the Japanese market and South Korean market. So there's some risk that's building up. AI bubble in Asia, the issues with the Strait of Hormuz, and what will the Fed do in terms of cutting rates or staying steady? I doubt them raising rates. So we have a resistance level at about 7,060, or I'm sorry, it's 760. And we have a support level. Now there's a somewhat of a support level at the 720 mark, but there's a very strong support level because of the Fibonacci sequence at 691. So that would equate to 6,918. So beware of those support levels. Now, if 720 breaks for SPY, and we're only 9 points away from that, we are most likely going to be testing the 700. That's a nice round number, but the real support level isn't 700. It's 691 for SPY. So just pay attention to that. 720, 700, and 691 for SPY. But that's if we start having a market sell-off. I would not get fearful because I still have a target of 780 for SPY. So that's up about right here per year-end target. So this is a time to actually accumulate some shares, especially if it gets closer to 700. So there's a little bit of risk that's building up in the equity market. Now, with oil, this jump up here where the arrow is during the war in Iran, and it peaked at approximately 120 and then started coming down. Right? There was even an early candle that didn't last for very long, even earlier on, that peaked at 119.48. This is WTI futures. And there's been a harmonic dissipation and it started to fall down. Now it's trading at approximately $70.24 a barrel. It went as low as 68 or so. Now, this is really important to pay attention to. These fib sequences are tied to the high point of the war and the low point before the war. All right. So we have this fib sequence that's going all the way back to about late December, all the way through this year. And this fib sequence and these retracements are important because they will tell you where the trading range is, the near-term trading range. So you can short and long net the oil market. So we have here the low bound of the trading range is going to be 68.78, and the high range is 79.62. We've been hearing in the last 24 hours, it seems as though the ceasefire is starting to break down, and this is the reason why oil's creeped back up. It was trading at around 68, 69, and then it went to 70.24. If we keep on hearing that the ceasefire and the strait is not flowing properly, if the ceasefire is ending or is having problems and the flow of tankers seems to decrease, then what's going to happen is the oil is going to creep back up to 74. So be careful of that. Now, if everything's positive, it'll retest the 68.78 barrier. So right now, I suspect that near-term trading range is going to be 68.78 to 79.62. So it may make sense to long right now or wait until it hits about 74 and then short. So there's a few ways to strategize this. It's near the bottom of the support level. If things seem to get a little worse in the Middle East, most likely it will hit 74 or 75, so you can long. Now, the high end of that range is 79. So you might want to long, and then once it gets closer to 79 or around 78, then you short it. So there's going to be some, I think it's going to be range bound in this area. Now, if everything's positive in the region, then it will retest the 68.78 and then maybe break. And then we're talking about new trading range between around 60 to about 67 or so. So this is heavily predicated on what's going to happen in the next 48 hours. Natural gas. Now, natural gas, you would think at times would trade with oil. But what I've been noticing is natural gas is trading, at least in the intraday, a lot of times inversely related. So if oil's going up, natural gas goes down. If oil is going down, natural gas goes up. There's another dynamic with natural gas, two dynamics with natural gas. The first dynamic is more natural gas used for the data centers for AI. The second dynamic is that we're going into this, we're in the summer season. Now, part of the problem is that in some regions of the country, it's wetter and you don't need as much natural gas to run the air conditioners. In other regions of the country, there is higher temperatures. So you have to run the air conditioner more, and that's more natural gas. Most of our electricity is generated from natural gas and coal. So, but typically what happens is that once you're in July, you start seeing natural gas start to fall. So on the left side of the chart, you can see that for July of last year, natural gas was trading at 3.5 or so and was falling, climbed, and then and fell sharply after the end of the fall into August. And right, so we should see a drop. So I suspect that the high for natural gas is around 3.3 as a trading range, and it wants to go and trade between 3.3 to about 3. I think fair value is around 2.9. Now it's possible to go above 3.5, but I don't think it'll stay above 3.5 for very long before it comes back down closer to 3. Now, this solid line is the ETF to short natural gas. All right. It's called cold. So if you think that natural gas will go down, you want to use cold. If you think natural gas is going to go up, you want to use boil. So you can see as natural gas was starting to fall, the ETF that shorts natural gas is starting to climb. So you can see this. So there is a pinch point here that's taking place roughly. But the question is, will natural gas break 3.5 or get closer to 3? I believe that at least in the near term, 3.3 is the fair value of the upper bound, and around 2.9 is the fair value of the lower bound of this trading range in the near term. So what I'm doing is shorting natural gas. But you have to you have to use some risk management. You have to pay attention to what you're doing almost every day. Can't just buy and hold. You have to pay attention to this. Now, again, pay attention to also the way oil is trading. At least during this crisis, there has been a lot of times an inverse relationship. So if oil is continually going down, there may be a higher probability that it gets closer to the 3.3, maybe even 3.5 for natural gas. If oil starts to creep back up to 78 because of what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz, then most likely we'll see natural gas creep down to 3. So pay attention to that dynamic also. There's a fundamental dynamic of natural gas, but also this inverse related trade with oil. Now, TYD is an ETF to long the belly of the curve for treasuries. It's a leveraged ETF, and it's more focused on the 7 to 10 year bond. Now, what I have on the screen here, the candles are actually TYD, the ETF for the treasury market, the belly of the curve of the treasury market. The solid line is a representation of the S&P 500 index. Now, textbook way of looking at this is that the bond market in a absolutely perfect world, bonds should trade inversely to equities. But because of fear, because of international instability, because of indebtedness of other countries, the war that's going on in the Middle East, sometimes equities will trade not negatively to the bond market, but positively. So the bond market, normally textbook way of looking at this is bonds normally go inversely to equities. So that's how you build up a portfolio. What has happened is that treasuries and equities are trading in tandem. So you're not diversified. So what I created was a correlation curve at the very bottom. And anything that's negative would be more textbook way of how the bond market works with the equity market. Anything above 0 is this positive correlation. And sometimes it gets close to 1. So for the last year, there has been many times that we have amplified the risk in a portfolio by holding bonds, not decrease the risk relative to equities, especially this year. Look at these long durations at a very high correlation, positive correlation of the bond market to the equity market. Now remember, this ETF trades positively, moves up when the bond price moves up. Bond prices should move down when equities move up in a textbook situation. And in many cases, the second half of last year, it was negatively correlated. But you look at what's going on this year because of the war, it's positively correlated with equities. So here you have equity started to go down. What happened with the 10-year? It started to go down, the price. And then when equity started to go up, the bond price started to go up. It was very positively correlated. And it started when all this crazy stuff happened with the long high correlation when the war started. I believe the war started at the end of February, I thought. So, it's definitely related to the war here. These big correlation areas. Now, when the equities really started climbing in around April, what did we see? At the beginning of that climb, we started seeing equities start to go up also. So it was positively correlated. And then that correlation started to break down. And bond yields started to go up and equities were starting to go up. So that is right here is where it's textbook, the way it should be going on, the way it should be reacting, how the bond market should be reacting relative to the equities. Then all of a sudden, what happens? We're talking late May, and the correlation starts to come back up. And where you have the bonds start to go up, and at that same time, equities started to go up. Right. And right now we have a very positive correlation. So be aware of this. The belly of the curve that we're having a situation where we're having this long duration of correlation that could last for 2 months. It's positively correlated to the market. And it could in this epoch, it was when the market was starting to go down. The bond price was also going down at the same time. In this epoch of correlation, you started to see bond prices starting to go up and the equity market started to go up. And now the equity market is starting to fluctuate, getting close to that 7,200 level. And you're seeing how the price of the bonds are in tandem with that fluctuation that's going on. So the big takeaway here is that correlation in the belly of the curve of the bond market can be positive to the equity market. Now, let's go into the detail about how to trade the TYD, assuming that bonds go up. So we have a resistance level of 24.24. We're trading at 24.14 for TYD. And we have a support level at 23.41. So that's the trading range. And it's been holding relatively stable for a while, for several sessions, a couple of weeks or so, a few weeks. Now, correlation is starting to go down. Now, if it continues to break zero and goes negative, what will happen is that if that does happen, if equities go up, then bond price will go down and TYD will go down. If equities go down, then bond price will go up. Now, what I have been noticing is the yields in the last few trading sessions for the 10-year are going down. So the bond price is going up. So we should see us testing the 24.24 mark. Now, if it breaks, then, and this correlation is negative, we should see a sell-off in equities. Now, TYD, you might want to short it, and because it's getting close to that resistance level. If it drops back down to 23.50, you'll probably see a yield price on the 10-year at about 4.5 or so. You might want to long TYD. But I think there's a trading range between 23.50 and 24.24 for TYD. Now, another chart that I have that shows a little different way of looking at the yields for the bonds, the 30-year and the 10-year yield. Now, we have, as of this print, 30 years at 4.86, 10 years at 4.4, rounding. And we have the Federal Reserve, the Fed fund rate at 3.63. The spread, which is 30 yield minus the 10-year yield, that is been going down. Now, what has been interesting here is that we've been relatively high all through January, February, March. It started going down in April, came back up. It started going down in March and then came back up in April and then started precipitously dropping mid-April all the way into or through June. Part of the reason for that is you can see that we had a 5.18 high point for the 30, and we were at about 4.65 or 4.7 at the high point for the 10, and then it dropped down to 4.4. So let's just say 4.7 minus 4.4, that gives you approximately 0.3. And this drop was 5.18 minus 4.86. So the drop was larger for the 30. So it seems like the 30 years coming in faster than the 10 years dropping. So taking a look at spreads gives you an idea of what's happening with the yields. Now, if the yields are dropping, then most likely you're going to see a tick up in those ETFs longing the bonds relative to price. So you can look at things from the bond level at the yield level, the percentage yield right here, or through the price, and they're inversely related. So with the bonds, if this continues to go down, I suspect that TYD should go up and test that 24.24 mark or 24.14 mark, whatever that resistance level is. Let's check. I think it was 24.24. So we should be testing that 24.24 soon as this is dropping down. Now bonds, they can move because of the equities. They can move because of currency. They can move because of the Federal Reserve. They can move because of some sort of international event that takes place. So it's not just the movement in equities. So there's more variables involved in following the yield here, but there's been a trend to go down. Now, if the Federal Reserve feels that they can't bring down rates because they're concerned about inflation, and inflation is annualized, there's numbers that are being printed that are close to 4%. That's a little too high. The Federal Reserve might hold or may raise rates. Now, if they raise rates, there's a school of thought that the bond yields are going to go up. But if you raise rates, you're also affecting the economy. Equities will sell. There's an inverse relationship to equities and bonds, and more people will jump into bonds and the yields will go down. So there's different schools of thought on how this may play out. It's not so cut and dry that if the Federal Reserve raises rates, that the bond yields will go up. They may actually go down in the short run, but they could go up. It really depends on what's the strength of the dollar, what's really going on in the equity market. And there is this short knee-jerk reaction to the news and the long-term effect. Now, if you look at the long-term effect, raising rates by the Federal Reserve probably would hamper economic activity. Equities will continue to fall and people would be looking for a safe haven, and bond bond prices will go up and yields will go down. And more people would probably move to the front of the curve or the belly of the curve, and therefore this yield might go down more. Well, this yield may go down a little bit more, but the spread may actually go up because the 10-year may actually drop faster, closer to it should the 10-year should be at 4. It's at 4.4 right now. So there's more probability of the 10-year going to 4 than the 30-year going to 4.5. So we should see a spike in the spread. The spread should spike, and we should see the 10-year yield go down. So that would mean that TYD may actually be surpassing the 24 mark and get closer to 24.50. But there are a lot of variables that are involved in the bond market. It's not as simple as inversely related to equities. Now, the VIX, if you remember before this spike, I kept on saying that in about 2.5 months, we'd see a spike. And all you have to do is just look at the recordings I've done a month ago or a couple weeks ago, and you can see that I was making that statement. So when we were around here, and as it came down, I kept on saying there's going to be another spike coming. Now let's just take a look at this. This happened at the very beginning of April. And I said it usually takes 2 to 2.5 months, sometimes 1 month, but it's usually 2.5 months. 1 month, 2 months, almost 2.5, right there. Boom. And I was saying that I was concerned about the end of May or the beginning of June. So I was predicting this to happen right here, and it happened. And if you don't believe me, just take a look at some of the recordings that I did. Fast forward to the VIX section, and you'll notice that I was talking about this event that was going to take place. And I said that it was going to come up close to 25, around 23, maybe 22, and that's what happened. Now, what's happening here lately is that we're creeping back up close to 20 because of the problems with the strait. Things seem to be copacetic when the signing took place. And then all of a sudden, because of that drone attack on a ship, and then the United States retaliating, we're going to be creeping up closer to 20. So I suspect that we're going to see higher VIX in the near term. And we should see equities get closer to 720, and oil should get closer to 74. Now, the question is, what will happen with natural gas? Taking the assumption that it's inversely related to oil, we should see natural gas trading at 3.1. And for the bond market, there's so many variables involved. We're probably gonna, it may, it's hard to tell. It's there seems to be it's going in an inverse for the correlation. So when equities are starting to sell off, I suspect that we're going to be testing the 24, and we probably will see the 10-year yield closer to 4.3, 4.35, maybe 4.31, maybe even 4.29, somewhere in there. So that's what I think is going to happen in the near term. So what I want to do now, that's the end of my chart presentation. I want to play a video from CSIS. And this video is talking about the oil markets. So pay attention because I think that CSIS does a great job of looking at the big picture of what's happening.
Good morning and welcome back to Energy Shots. I'm Joseph Mikett. We're broadcasting live from Washington today. The country's setting to celebrate its 250th birthday. We have a fragile but somewhat sustained ceasefire in the Gulf. And Kevin, we're starting to think about, well, what have we learned in the last 120 days?
Joseph, good morning. Good to see you. Also very excited for 250 years of American independence and exceptionalism and protectionism. I know you probably didn't expect me to say that part. Do you think so I've talked, Joseph, you and I've talked about this a lot. I've talked about it here at the center and at Clearview. There's this argument that we're deglobalizing, and that, among other things, maybe fiscal stimulus, spending tomorrow's money on yesterday's factories makes you protect those factories. We've seen sort of a lot of stimulus, a lot of protectionism. Do you think there's a case for protectionism?
I think that for protectionism, you have to be careful. Right? Okay. There are areas where there's clear externalities, national security concerns, where you want to protect American advantage. You want to make sure that we are not too vulnerable on foreign supply. But protectionism can turn to cost inflation or just failure. And protectionist mechanisms, once they're installed, can be very sticky.
Well, do you like navies?
Yes, I do like navies.
I mean, it's hard to fight a war without a navy, I've heard.
Yes.
A modern war, even a conventional war, if you go back to a classic war, even. So, and to have a navy, you've got to supply that navy.
Yes.
That navy is going to need stuff. It's going to need material. It's going to need materials. It's going to need people, although you can put them on planes these days. And so there's an argument for a merchant marine.
Right.
And so this brings us to maritime industry restrictions. Maybe this would be a good place to start with our first slide, because you don't hear the name Wesley enough anymore. I think it's a good, solid name from old times. But Senator Wesley Jones is responsible for the 1920 Merchant Marine Act, and specifically the Jones Act, as we refer to it, because he was its principal sponsor in the Senate. And that is a controversial piece of legislation. It has strong advocates for that merchant marine to supply those navies on one side, and critics who say that it's an inefficient component of our supply system, including for energy.
Well, so let me interrupt. I mean, Senator Wesley Jones, long-seated Republican senator from my home state of Washington.
Your Washington.
Yes, Washington.
Not my Washington, which isn't even a state. Barely a city sometimes.
You know, I hear you on the Navy, but remember, this was also helped put in place to prevent foreign flagships from carrying cargo and goods between the ports in Seattle and the Puget Sound up to Alaska.
Oh, so there may have been a little bit of local politics that went into his national policy.
Yeah, that could be.
That's never happened in America.
No.
Okay, well, so maritime industry restrictions are not new. They do go back to 1789, to the third law passed here in the United States. The 1817 laws that went into place on cabotage, that coastwise trade, blocked it basically until 1917. So for 100 years, something happened. A war came, and they suspended those restrictions because suddenly we needed to be able to move more things when ships were deployed to war, and foreign flag tankers moving coastwise trade became necessary. But the words necessary, I think, is the important word, from the Jones Act. It is necessary for the national defense and the development of the domestic and foreign commerce of the United States that the United States have a merchant marine owned and operated as vessels of the United States by citizens of the United States. Maybe this is a good point to sort of dig in. First of all, the Jones Act is politically powerful for a lot of reasons, and one of them probably has to do with the density of coastal population in the United States. 40% live right on the coastline, 50% within 50 miles of the coastline, according to NOAA data. So Senator Jones, who, by the way, wasn't just a protectionist, but also a prohibitionist.
Yes.
Not in favor of that, by the way. Whichever side you may be on protection, drinking every so often is probably okay, personal opinion. So Jones Act cabotage restrictions limit the coastwise merchandise trade to U.S. flagged, built, owned, and operated vessels.
Right.
Which is an extremely tight restriction.
Yes.
So Jones put back in place restrictions that had been in place for 100 years, but they've gotten stricter since then.
Right.
And so now there's an eligible fleet of only 56 tankers. I know we'll get into this in a minute, plus one LNG carrier,
Right.
the American Energy, which is actually only part of a loophole that allows it to go to Puerto Rico.
Right.
It's not widely available. And yet the Trump administration, I'm going to go daringly onto another limb here. Would you say the Trump administration has been willing to test boundaries?
The Trump administration has been extremely protectionist and willing to test boundaries.
In interesting contrast. So at the same time that they've emphasized shipbuilding dominance, put in place a set of restrictions on LNG exports starting in 2028 to use initially American-owned and crude tankers, and then getting essentially to quasi-Jones Act-like tankers the next year, small percentage but rising, for tankers that basically don't exist, to try to reinvigorate shipbuilding, has also put in place the longest waivers of the Jones Act for the Iran war in the modern history, certainly in my career memory of Jones Act waivers. 150 days going right now through August 16th.
Now, if we dial back on the politics of this, every time there's an emergency, a hurricane strikes Puerto Rico, there's a fire at an oil refinery in the northeast of the United States, there's a debate in Washington, should there be Jones Act waivers, right? Should companies be able to ship fuel and products or LNG out of the Gulf Coast primarily to these affected markets to increase market access and to provide energy security, but it's always a temporary measure. It's a few days, it's a few weeks. What we saw during this Hormuz crisis was a lasting waiver, and it looks, and we're going to talk about today, like we might have learned some things about what the Jones Act truly stands in the way of.
Well, let's maybe move into that. So we have a fleet. And I think
Yes.
This is for a graphic depiction. It doesn't get more fleety than this.
Right. So there are thousands of tankers around the world that can move oil and products in between ports.
Okay.
But we've got in the United States, 56 that are in orange here, flagged and made in the United States, meaning they're Jones Act eligible. There's a few that were U.S. flagged and not built in the United States. They probably shipped other products or they're owned by major corporations. But there is a very limited number of vessels that under normal conditions can carry products and oil in between American ports legally under the Jones Act.
Okay.
Right? So what happens when you create those long-term waivers, or what did happen? We saw an incredible expansion of the fleet available for commerce. Clicky, clicky. Over that period, you can go download the data from the Department of Transportation. We saw 90 ships offered waivers. They made about just over 100 deliveries over that time period, carrying oil and products in between American ports. This might be oil loaded just outside my old hometown of Ferndale, Washington, and brought to Oregon or to California. This might be oil that was brought from the Gulf Coast up to the Northeast, but it supplanted imports to those regions that would have had to come either from other countries, maybe from East Asia in the case of the West Coast, and provided domestic energy security at a time of crisis.
I see more green foreign tankers that were wavered in, but the blue tankers were also wavered in. And so the overall fleet, we're looking at substantially more capacity because of those waivers.
Exactly. 150 days of waivers dramatically increased the number of ships that were available for shipping products between U.S. ports.
Well, let's talk about this a little bit, because the waivers came into place in March. Before we get to that.
New software.
New software, everybody. And yes, this is still live.
Yep.
Still unscripted. Okay, tell us what's going on here.
Well, I think this, we want to fit this into the broader narrative of what happened over the energy crisis in Hormuz, right? There were two big market effects. I was at API on Monday talking with industry players about sort of what did we learn out of this crisis. And the two big things that they were talking about were, one, the role of China and the release of its strategic reserves and the ability of the Chinese economy to dial down consumption when there was a big supply disruption. I think that surprised a lot of market watchers.
Well, energy security is a lot easier when you have that much more control over your economy.
But you also saw U.S. exports really filling the gap on gasoline and products for markets that had traditionally relied on Middle East supply that was unable to escape Hormuz. And And that has created some interesting conversations in Washington. So what we're showing here is U.S. exports in total of gasoline over the course of the year. Not a huge increase during the crisis, actually, but the U.S. is an exporter of products and crude oil these days. On the other hand, you see here for Pad 1, that's New England, and Pad 5, the West Coast, imports from foreign markets into those regions of gasoline products. In particular, check out here the rising imports into Pad 1.
Well, but even Pad 1, which by the way is not just New England, but the whole eastern seaboard. Pad 1A is New England, BC, down the coast. Looking how lean it gets, right around, wait, look at this, March 27th. That's an interesting date. Maybe we'll talk about that one in a second. Yep. Moving to that.
Yeah.
So we have at the outset, going back to again that exact point, March 27th, we have the Brent crude price above $110 a barrel, which today it's a lot lower, and we'll come to that. But this is where the deliveries start in March 31st, and they start running. We have data currently here through the 23rd. There's one more data point we didn't catch because it came out later than this chart. But you can see the build is slow at first for the deliveries because it takes time for the cargoes to go. But it rising on, this is cumulative deliveries in the blue, as Brent is falling. Okay, now these two things are unrelated, but they're important in the sense that what we're watching is sort of the indication of the crisis, and here's the crisis response. You could argue this is a pretty rapid crisis response. Now, if you look at what happened here, we had 31.7 million barrels over the 87 days through June 23rd, which works out to about 365,000 barrels per day, delivered to 18 states plus Puerto Rico. And so if we go to the next slide, what you'll see is that the composition, about 36% of it was gasoline and light components, blend stocks, similar components of the gasoline mix. 28.7% of it, basically 29%, was crude oil, followed by distillate fuels, heating oil, gas oil at 14%. There was about 5% biodiesel and 1.3% ethanol, by the way, and all the not biodiesel, renewable diesel. All that renewable diesel went to California because they have standards in place that make that a valuable delivery. But if you look at what's going on here, this is primarily a gasoline and light products fuels story. And then the question is, well, where's it going? And 41% of it went to California. And if you look at the big pink slice, that's the gasoline slice. You can see that. Now, you also have a very significant volume going to Puerto Rico. Extremely important here because, again, governed by the Jones Act. 32% of this went to the eastern seaboard, the broader Pad 1 region. 46.5% went to the West Coast and Alaska. The waiver ends in August as it stands right now. But here's an interesting question. New England can't get gas right now from U.S. tankers, LNG tankers, because the Jones Act fleet doesn't include a New England eligible LNG tanker. There's only the American Energy, which can only go to Puerto Rico. The question is, could we start to see LNG going to New England under the waiver before all of this is said and done? Or if the waiver lasts longer, which it's not clear that it would, but if it were to last longer, would that happen going into the winter heating season? There's an opportunity here for a Jones Act waiver to solve a problem, which is that the LNG imported at global market prices during times of previous market scarcity going into New England has been rather costly. And so going into the Everett terminal has been an expensive part of the fuel mix. It's one of the reasons why it really underscores the importance of building pipeline infrastructure into New England, if possible, to try to supply gas to the region. A lot of complicated questions. If you have waivers, well, what do you think about that? If you have waivers, do you still have a problem?
Let's pause there. I mean, in the last 150 days, we've seen if you did not have the Jones Act, or the Jones Act didn't apply to fuels, or you had some sort of different market structure, you would get trade in between U.S. ports in oil and barrels and other things. And maybe this is a way to address rising energy security problems in the United States, right? California has huge issues with future fuel mix and closing refineries. Wouldn't it be great if you could easily ship fuel in between refineries in other parts of the United States and California? Wouldn't it be great if you could move LNG into New England? This is, I think actually there's a real case for this being a reform that we make in the name of energy security. Energy security is an important part. It's of our overall security, our economic security. There's going to be a tension with the national security motivations of the Jones Act, But I think there's rising interest in Washington, including from a lot of industry voices, to maintain these waivers or to make them more available automatically in the future. Well, but does that create a long-term misincentive to not have the big infrastructure like the pipelines you mentioned?
Or perhaps strategic reserves in California. Let's turn to California on the next slide. So what we see in California here, the pink range, in this case, is the 5-year gasoline inventory range from 2021 through 2025. And what you have in orange is last year, calendar 2025. And in blue, dropping precipitously are gasoline inventories. They go all the way down, and shocking that you'll find out that this date here is March 20th, when gasoline stocks bottom out 18% below the 5-year average and 6% below all weeks over the last 5 years. So an absolute low by all recent standards for gasoline. And then they start to come up. That is not likely to be a coincidence given those deliveries from Jones Act tankers into California.
Right.
So many of them. And so, yeah, there's questions. Does this enable complicated state policies? Does this undercut pro-production options? Does this interfere with some of the other policy options that maybe the administration is exploring? And does this get in the way of a case for build-out of pipeline infrastructure?
I don't know. I think this is the conversation we're going to have in Washington over the next few months. A lot of people have benefited from these waivers at a time of crisis. And sometimes you learn in a time of crisis, you make policy decisions that end up being more permanent. And I think there is I think personally, just editorial view, there's a strong case to look at the Jones Act and the effect it has on energy security and say we need to make some reforms here. How you then balance that with even the president has said from day one, we're in an energy emergency. Maybe we should think about making some changes like this.
Well, you say crisis and you say emergency. Are we still in a crisis? Are we still in an emergency? Maybe let's take a look at the next slide.
Yes.
Because if I follow this orange line, this is the price of Brent crude relative to the February 27th close,
right?
Which is the day before the Iran war began, in cents per gallon. So dividing the barrel price by 42, going up a lot, and then coming down round trip. This was as of yesterday, but this morning it was also true all the way back to $72.48 per barrel, 0 cents delta per gallon. And so this here, as an indication of crisis, this energy crisis, looks like the crisis is over. The blue line is the AAA national average regular gasoline price, which went up to well over $1 above the pre-war status quo ante, and is now down to roughly 90 cents or so above that status quo ante.
Right.
We got a posting on social media from President Trump. President Trump used the G word, gouging. He said that companies better not be gouging, basically. Right. He said it again during a press conference, which is frankly a little bit of a surprising thing to hear from an industry-friendly president, but not the first time we've heard it from this administration. Right. We heard it also from Secretary Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. In April, he said, we see oil prices going down, the gasoline prices, they better follow, or we're going to be watching to make sure you're good actors. And so this sort of discomfort, this political discomfort, there is still at least something like a crisis for drivers who are looking at this delta, right?
And drivers who are perhaps considering a little bit of summer travel starting on the July 4th weekend, still paying higher prices and living with the aftermath of the Hormuz crisis. Now,
so 250 years, you would maybe want to have a $2.50 gallon. You're not getting that with this particular price at $3.90 a gallon or so.
Not unless there's maybe some promotional event somewhere.
Maybe that would drive a lot of traffic into the inner. A lot of those service stations make their money selling things other than gasoline. And gasoline can be a loss leader. Yeah. That would be a very big loss to lead.
Now, this would be a question for you. I totally understand the frustration of the president and political leadership as the global market has returned to the pre-war pricing, but the gasoline system in the United States has not. That price could take some time to work itself out, could it not?
It certainly could. There's a number of things, including the national inventories, the global availability of products. There's also just reality, which is that cargoes have to move. It takes time to move them on the open sea. Before these supply dislocations can be resolved, you actually need those volumes.
And if only you had more ships available to move them in between American ports.
Did you just set me up? I feel like I just got set up. Well, the other thing I think it's worth noting is that these investigations have been called for by a lot of past presidents.
Yes.
We heard the same thing from President Biden. We heard the same thing in different forms from President Obama. We even heard something similar from President Bush. Or at least from the Bush administration.
Yeah.
And so concerns about these higher prices produce a question, is somebody doing something to cheat, doing something to break the rules?
Right.
And there's been no findings of any of these investigations that have ever shown systematic manipulation of prices.
Right.
And there are maybe one-off or localized dislocations, maybe even occasional bad actors. That certainly can happen. But it's really hard to coordinate 150,000 independent retailers. That level of collusion would be masterful. Maybe one day in AI that will be possible, but it hasn't been proven to date. Right. So you get a lot of political headlines, you don't get a lot of resolution. And so I think as we look into this driving season, this driving weekend, in particular coming up next week, and this is only half of the year. It feels like it's been 7 or 8 years so far.
Yes,
but
time
only
is
half the
moving
year is over.
realistically.
But as we get that, we're not done because there's a political season that heats up after that weekend, going into the November elections. And so I think we'll be watching this blue line no matter what the orange line does.
Well, and I look forward to watching it with you in future episodes of Energy Shots. Before we close today, Kevin, any plans for the 4th of July?
Yeah, I'm getting away, getting out of town. That's a jinx. I almost certainly guarantee this some major international event. Are you getting interrupted more on vacations?
What's a vacation?
Okay, good answer. Are you perhaps getting interrupted more at dinner?
I'm getting yes. I mean, now I keep the phone away from me at dinner, but the interruptions are high. And
that may be a sign that your global order isn't functioning as well as it used to.
Right.
So I think we should all keep our phones at hand for the July 4th weekend. What about you, Joseph? What are you doing?
I'll be here in town. I'm looking forward to celebrating the 250th birthday of the United States here in our nation's capital.
As am I. I was here for the 200th. But at the time I was quite young, and my main obsession was the bicentennial quarter.
Yeah. Good.
Which I'm still quite obsessed with.
Well, I'm looking forward to the fireworks and the flyovers.
Fantastic. Well, great to do this with you again. Congratulations on CSIS and the team here rolling out our new look and feel. Look forward to more great things.
Yeah, thank you to our colleagues for helping us put this together. For all who've watched and joined us today, thank you. We'll see you in 2 weeks, and we hope you have an energetic day.
That's the end of this broadcast. Please help support the work that I do by going to my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and getting the great products that I offer. In addition, if you would like to help support the work that I do, because these videos are for free, please be a paid member to my Patreon channel and donate on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.